Okay, first graders, we're going to continue on chapter 11 with subtraction as a comparison. So here we are on the next page of our textbook. We've got this question, how can I compare how many there are of each? So there are two separate items on that page. There are straws and there are smoothies. Again, we're going to have to count them all in order to compare the two groups. In this case, they've already counted them for us. It says that there are 8 smoothies and 5 straws. We don't need to count them because the books are almost always right. 8 smoothies, 5 straws. How many more smoothies than straws are there? How many more then? That means we need to make an equation. That's longhand for what's our math equation? We take the biggest number, there are 8 smoothies, and we want to know how many more smoothies there are than straws. We minus the straws. Here's our number of smoothies. We take away the straws, and we know right off the bat that 8 minus 5 equals 3. Okay? So that means there are three more smoothies than there are straws. 3 kids or 3 children are not going to get a straw in their smoothie. How many, here's the next question, how many fewer straws than smoothies are there? How many less straws are there than smoothies? Well, we already know that, don't we? Because we just did the equation. There's 8 smoothies, 5 straws. There's 3 less straws. 3 smoothies are going to be strawless. So that's how we know. We've already done the equation. Here is how they've compared the two. There's straws lined up to smoothies, and look at, there are the 3 with no straws. We already knew that because we did our math equation and we knew the answer. But look at this. Here is where they always want an answer. There are 3 more smoothies than straws, or 3 fewer straws. It's the same answer, isn't it? It's just 2 different ways to ask the same question. Here's the equation, 8 minus 5. We already know that equals 3. And there are 3 more smoothies than straws, and there are 3 fewer straws than smoothies. All these are just different ways to ask the same thing when you're comparing 2 different items. Now let's look at the next page. We're going to move on to number 1 on this page 15. I'm going to give you a minute to look at it. I want you to see if you can figure this one out without my help, and then we'll look at it together. I'm going to read the sentence to you so you can really understand the question. There are 10 cups and 6 coasters. They look like cookies to me, but they're coasters. Are there more cups or coasters? Are there more cups or coasters? Well, if we look at that problem, can't you already see that there's way more cups than there are coasters? Because even if you lined them up like this, you could see there's a lot more cups. So we already know there's more cups. But how many more? How do we set up the equation for this? Well, we have to count them, and the book has already counted them for us. There are 10 cups, and there are 6 coasters. So here's our equation. 10 minus 6. We already know that. That's pretty simple, isn't it? It's 4. There are 4 more cups than coasters. We're going to put a 4 right in here because I don't want you to write in your textbook. I'm just showing you how it looks on the equation here. So there are 4 more cups than coasters. Okay? That settles that word problem. Let's look at number 2 now. Those are frogs, and these are lily pads. Lily pads are what frogs sit on, right? Okay. Our sentence here says there are 6 lily pads and 9 frogs. We don't have to count them because the book is always right. They already know how many of each item there are. Are there fewer frogs or lily pads? There's that word again, fewer. Are there fewer frogs or fewer lily pads? Which number is smaller? Well, we know there's 9 frogs, and if you need to see it written down next to the item, you can write a 9 next to the frogs, and you can write a 6 next to the lily pads, if you like. And then ask yourself, which one is the smaller number? Which is the lesser number of these two? Is it 6 or is it 9? Yeah, it's 6. So there are fewer lily pads than there are frogs. That means a certain amount of frogs aren't going to have a lily pad to sit on. Let's see how many frogs are not going to have a lily pad. There's the last question on here. How many fewer? How many fewer means how many less how many frogs aren't going to have a lily pad? Here's our equation. 9 minus 6. We already know that's a 3, isn't it? There are 3 fewer lily pads than frogs. I'm just going to write this in very quickly, so don't look at my bad handwriting. I'll put this a little better. Lily pads. Was better before. Okay. We could compare them like this. They don't really compare though, because the lily pads are a little bit bigger than the frogs. So you'd have to draw lines. And then this guy goes over here, and this guy goes way over here. And then we have 3 frogs that don't have a lily pad. But we already know, because we've been working on our equations, and we already know that 9, this right here, 9 minus 6 is 3. So we already know 3 frogs are going to be lily padless. Okay, let's go to the last page on this particular chapter. And I'm going to let you look at it. Turn your page in your book to now you're on page 16. And we're going to talk about Brussels sprouts and mushrooms. Brussels sprouts and mushrooms. Look at that for a minute. The sentence says, May buys 8 Brussels sprouts and 13 mushrooms. Did she buy fewer mushrooms or fewer Brussels sprouts? Which one did she buy fewer of? Now look at the picture and see what you think the answer to that is, and you can see the numbers here too. Which number is lesser than the other? Which number is smaller? Which is the smallest number of those two? Is it 8 or is it 13? Did she buy fewer mushrooms or Brussels sprouts? Well, the smaller number is 8, isn't it? So she bought fewer Brussels sprouts than she bought mushrooms. So she bought fewer Brussels sprouts. How many fewer? So now we have to write the equation in there. How many fewer Brussels sprouts? Now, if we want to know if we're comparing the two, how we do this, we have to take the larger number and we subtract the smaller number from it. And that's how we get the difference between the two. What's the bigger number? We already said is 13. Our operator is going to be subtraction. We're going to take away the amount of Brussels sprouts, which is 8. And 13 minus 8, we already know right off the bat, it's 5. There are 5 fewer Brussels sprouts than there are mushrooms. Now, if you weren't so sure and you didn't know if your equation was right, you could come up here and you could count, couldn't you? You could say, you could draw a line from each Brussels sprout and match it to the mushrooms and count how many mushrooms are left over. Okay, if you wanted to do it that way. But we don't really need to do that, do we? Because we have our equation right here, and we're very good mathematicians when it comes to doing subtraction within 1 through 20. So, she buys 5 fewer Brussels sprouts than mushrooms. Okay? This isn't a spelling lesson, so we're not going to worry about the words so much as the numbers. Okay? She buys 5 fewer Brussels sprouts than mushrooms. All right, now, here's the best one of all. I want you to look at this one, the bottom one with the cupcakes and the cherries. Okay? Dion has 15 cupcakes. Do we need to count them? No, we do not, because we know the book is right. And he's got 7 cherries. He wants to put 1 cherry on every cupcake. But he doesn't have enough, does he? We can already tell. He needs more cherries. He wants to put 1 on each cupcake. How many more than 7 does he need in order to have every cupcake have a cherry on it? Well, how can we do that? We could draw our lines, and we could draw a cherry to each cupcake if we wanted to do it the hard way, or we could do it the easy way and make a math equation. So we're going to try and find the difference between the amount of cupcakes we have and the amount of cherries that we have. We take the larger number. We have more cupcakes than we have cherries, don't we? So that's our first number in our equation. We're going to put 15 in the first part of our equation. And we're going to use subtraction because we're going to take away the amount of cherries that we have from our cupcakes to see how many more cherries we need. Now we have 7 cherries, 15 minus 7. We already know right off the bat, that's 8. So we know Dion needs 8 more cherries. Okay? Good. Well, stay tuned for lesson 2 tomorrow, and there'll be some assignments in your workbook. I'll see you then.